I like that Demolition Man dub plate. That's like one of my favorite tunes, man.
Yeah.
That's
For those who log in, let me give you an intro. For those
I
who
love
are
that
logging
song.
in,
I love that thing, man.
we
Watch
are
them.
we are talking to a legend. He doesn't consider himself a legend,
Nope.
but believe you me, Toronto, this man is a legend. And he's important to me because this is the man that gave the key, opened the door, pushed it through, and said, Wiz, walk through. Taught me that dressing is important. Taught me that punctuality is important. Even more so ever, I'm learning stuff even tonight, 27 years after. I'm learning same way from this gentleman. Haven't seen him in about 7, 8 years face to face, but we've talked on the phone. I call him. He never
Yeah.
ever, says, no, can't talk to you. Never says, if I need a help, need a hand, need music, he's there. He's been an inspiration for me. I've always had the respect, no matter what in the careers and the things that I've traveled through. But for radio, this is the man that put Wiz on the map. And I have nothing but respect for this gentleman. This gentleman talks nothing but facts, and he talks straight to you. So it's a pleasure and it's an honor for 20-something odd years later to be able to look at a gentleman and say, thank you, I appreciate you and what you've done for me.
Respect. Thank you.
It's
I'm actually I'm very humbled by that. I'm very humbled. Thank you.
You know what I mean? It's absolutely awesome. And it's like, I'm not the man to go out everywhere and say, yo, blah, 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 blah. But this man right here, by hands down, is a man I take my hat off to. I'll give my last dollar to if need be, because what he's done for me in my lifetime, it's just a blessing. So I appreciate God for you, bro. Really, thank you. Really, really.
Thank you.
You've taught us so much here tonight. You've actually changed the mind frame. I think a lot of viewers and listeners of what radio might be, what playing music might be. And like I said,
I haven't even gotten a voice yet. Voice is a whole other conversation. If you want to go to that one, well, we can do that too. You can talk. We can talk about the industry. You can talk about it. Whatever. As I said, I'm here. Whatever you want to talk about, I'm here.
We're going to talk about everything because this is so educational, even for me.
Okay.
And we started off by saying, I was like, when you used to come to the dance, and I watched you because I was, wasn't apprentice, but you brought me in and say, yo, this man's part of my show. This man is with me. This man
I don't look at anybody as an apprentice. I look at somebody like, if the one thing, and I'll say this to anybody, is I don't teach you what to do. I just teach you scheme. What scheme do I need you to do? Right? I look at it in a sense to say that when I'm hiring people to do, the only thing I've hired people, at radio stations and whatever. But most people start off as an intern. I don't like to use that term intern. I don't really ask people to go get me a coffee or the most I've ever asked them to do is I said, hey, can you get me some food? And I usually give them some money so they can get themselves some stuff too. But I've said to people who have come to my door, how you present yourself is very, very important. I will always tell everybody, when I see that you went to school to do radio, that means a lot to me. If you went to, let's say, a Fanshawe, if you went to Ryerson, but especially if you came to Humber, I expect the world from you because I know what the Humber program is like. I've been to the Humber program. I know the teachers who went to Humber, and they don't play. So I'm very hard on people. I've had I always say this, if you've interned with me, guaranteed you're going to get a job in radio because I'm going to make sure that you're game ready. You're ready to be hired by anybody. All my interns that I've ever had, except for one, have all had jobs on radio or TV. Period. You know what I mean? Every single one of them has had that. I have made I've made two receptionists who, one worked at Flow, one worked at G. They got radio shows after. I mean, big up Kevin Carrington as well too. I mean, he was one of my interns as well too, and yeah, I mean, he blew up he blew up so much. You know, Kevin and Tyler were probably my two best interns ever. Kevin went on to do so many different things. And Kevin, I just heard that promo you did for the Barbados event. That was wicked. And Kevin calls me all the time and he says, you know, hey, what presets am I using? What should I use as far as mic? What different things would we do? And we talk about different things like the mic that you use to do commercials with. I remember early in my career, a lot of guys when they were doing commercials were shouters. They used to do a lot of shouting, and I'm glad that era of shouting went away like the dinosaur. Like Snoop came in, you know, with his nice smooth style and kind of changed that, so we didn't have to shout anymore. And a lot of guys who were shouters back then, their voices wrecked. I learned at an early age that club commercials are this as far as your pay scale. Yes, you get to do a lot of them, but they don't have the breadth that do things. Like now, I make most of my commercial money not from doing commercial, but doing from narrations. Right?
Right.
I can say this and nobody can take this away from me. I did the rally cry for Game 6 of the Raptors winning the finals. I'm the one who made the Raptors win. I can say that. Nobody can. I did it. I'm the one who led the TSN broadcast for them winning their thing. You know what I mean?
Wow. Yeah.
And they won. I said they can put the final nail on the coffin to this arena if they win tonight. And they did that. And I did that lead in. And that's something that's out there. Right? Just the other day on TSN, I did Io Akinola, a guy from Brampton, whose story is amazing. And he's a soccer player who unfortunately at one time was homeless. And, you know, he's now a soccer star out in Tampa. He played for MLS as well. And those narrations that I do, I've done those things. I've done the voice for Budweiser. Those commercials aren't screaming. They're just me talking. And learning to do what's called a straight read is very important. Because, yeah, it's wonderful. People say, yeah, free, blah, 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 whatever, screaming. But those are club commercials. You get paid some crazy money for doing like 6 seconds. You know, like that Aflac guy always says, Aflac. He makes crazy money. And you can live off of just voicing commercials, just doing voiceovers. I've done commercials. I've done narrations. I've done cartoons. I've done overdubbing. So let's say, you know, there's an Italian movie and they want to do it in English. I'm doing the voice in English for them. And just that part of what I do for a living, now that I can't DJ, which is that's another whole topic all in itself. But I've been able to take the skills that I learned from being on the radio and put that into a different type of career where I'm able to move around in it. You know, people say, oh, well, hey, you're not on the radio anymore. When I was at G, I said, no, I'm the creative director. They're like, oh, so when are you on? I'm like, I'm not. And that's all they think a radio station is just to be able to be on the air. And as I said, being on the air is one thing, but generally your shelf life on commercial radio is maybe 2.5 years, 2.5 to 3 years for the most part. I wanted to have a career where that I'm there, I'm at that radio station, and no matter what the format is, I can still write commercials, I can still voice commercials, I can still produce commercials, I can do different things. And no matter what happens, it's always going to be, I'm making the decisions. Like now, I'm at 106.5 Element FM in Toronto, 95.7 in Ottawa. I'm able to take those two things and have fun with them. So what I do is for the people in Toronto, I use their voice in Ottawa. The Ottawa people voice the stuff in Toronto, right? I help out doing a mixed show at night, and I also help out in the morning show as well too with Bob McGee. So those are different things that I wasn't able to do with some of the other places that I was at. And I'm blessed, and I do say the word that I'm blessed to be able to do those things, especially with what is happening in the world today. I'm glad. I wake up every morning, I say I'm glad, I'm thankful for having a job. I'm also really thankful for not believing the negativity that always happens to people like you and myself, who they tell us that we can't do what we do. You can never take advice from someone who's never done what we do. You can only learn from people who do what we do. If they've never been to Jamaica, how are you telling me what Jamaica is like? And you've never been there, right? You don't born there, you don't grow there, you don't know what it's like, you don't know what it's like. I mean, we know going to Jamaica that Jamaica is one place and Yacht is a totally different place. We know that. When we come off the plane in Montego Bay and they take us down to Wyndham Rose Hall, we're going to Jamaica. When we come off the plane in Kingston and we're going to go see our family, we're going to Yacht. And we better get real used to being able to take a bucket and another small little cup and our little wash rag and our soap, because that's what we're bathing with, because there's no hot water tank. We know that, right?
For certain places, and we got to know how to move. You got to know how to move.
You know what I mean?
You got to know how to move.
You know what I mean? We know that if we're having fowl that night, that somebody's going to the chicken coop and taking that chicken and slicing off the neck and throwing it in the hot water and plucking it and then taking a blowtorch and taking off the feathers and stuff. That's the chicken we're having that night. And that chicken kind of tough still because, you know, it's country fowl, right? That's what we do. That's how we maneuver. We know that right now we can't play music in front of a crowd. And that kills us because, we can be on the internet playing music, right? But there's no crowd there. So it's like doing a dance and there's nobody there. And to us, not playing for a crowd is flop outs. You know what I mean? God bless the guys who are able to play week to week and day to day online. They're doing the Twitch and whatever, and my hat goes off to them, whatever. But for me, I'm not dissing them, but I can't do it. There's just something that it's just something I just can't. I feel like I'm in jail, like I'm playing to a wall. I'm playing the emptiness. I need that. I need the dopamine to go off in my head where, you know, you hit the line switch and the crowd singing it like, whoa, you don't get that. Yeah, you're getting people liking your stuff, but it's a totally different feeling.
It's a totally different vibe. Totally different. So, you know, your transformation from when it was CHRY over to, we first moved to Flow.
Correct.
Now, here's where I'm going to start. Here's where I was mad at you. Because I was like, the man's gone. This is a man who I've been partying with for years upon years. Remember, it was actually your show because it was your name on the dotted line. So my name wasn't on the dotted line. So at that point in time, they could say, yo, see you so long, see you later. Danae wasn't there to save me. And I continued it on. Like, I was lucky enough to come in the station, I guess because the thing was 2 o'clock. And then before I went over to Richards and stuff. But I don't remember you telling, I don't know if maybe I didn't pan it, but we didn't have that discussion that you were like out.
One of the things in radio that I learned a long time ago is you never say goodbye. You never really ever say goodbye. My last day on Flow, I never say goodbye. My last day on CHY, I never say goodbye. And I was lucky. And another thing too, I'll say this: you're not a real radio announcer until you got fired. Period.
Yeah, so I'm good then. I got hit
You're
twice,
you're
so
you're
I'm good.
not a real radio announcer until you got fired. Most radio announcers have been fired a couple of times. Most good radio announcers have never, been fired. And because when I was on Flow the first time and I was on the air and then I got replaced, I wasn't me. I wasn't me. I was the guy who they wanted me to be. They didn't want me to be JUICEMAN. They wanted me to be Jonathan. They didn't want me to be JUICEMAN. They didn't want me to use the JUICEMAN name at all. And when I came back on the radio again, when they gave me my second stint on the radio, I wasn't even trying to be that corporate guy anymore. I was wilding out. I was straight wilding out. I was like, yo, this is like, I was like, you know what? If you're gonna fire me, you're gonna fire me because me. You're not firing me because I'm a corporate product. I'm not Mr. Flow. I'm Mr. Jonathan Oliver Chambers Shaw, the first of many to come. And that's it. And that's how I'm gonna deal with it with radio moving forward. Right? I made sure that I did my homework when it came to radio after that. Like I always did. But I mean, when I got to Flow, I didn't have a plan. And I'll blame myself for that. I didn't have a plan. I'd always wanted to be on commercial radio, and I got there and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm here. But I didn't know what to do once I got there. I didn't realize, and for all of us at that time, it was a major learning curve of how to flex, how to deal with the public, how to deal with, the haters, how to deal with whatever, and all the other sort of stuff. And after I left Flow, I didn't want to do radio anymore. I was good. I was good. I didn't want to do radio anymore. I was done. And I got a job doing sales out out at Wave FM, Wave 94.7. It was out in Hamilton. And I was a
Okay.
sales rep. And I learned a whole different part of radio. I learned how to sell radio. I learned how to do different things. And then and I was majorly Clark Kent. I did not want them to know that I voiced commercials. I didn't want them to know whatever. I mean, obviously the person who hired me knew, but I didn't want anybody else to know. And then they got me to voice commercials and different things, whatever. But they also got wind that Mr. Gordon got got the frequency for G98.7. And this is going back to like 2007, right? 2006, 2006 days. And they were like, is this guy going to be here and not jump ship? That's what they were majorly afraid of. And I remember that I went out and I was going out to Hamilton. I was going out to Niagara Falls every day. I was learning how to do radio. And Simon Constam, to this day, he wasn't a boss. He's like my father. He pulled me aside and he taught me whatever I needed to know about radio. There was another guy by the name David Marsden who was at Flow, taught me everything I really needed to know about the different aspects of radio. And I learned so much from those two individuals. Lee Marshall, right? Always been my mentor. Always been my mentor. We don't talk that much, but I mean, he was a voice of CTV. And I learned how to use my voice properly, like how to, mimic his way of doing different things and all that other sort of stuff, right? Mr. Jolly, when I was at Flow, I learned philanthropy from him. I learned how to, I was able to buy a house because of Mr. Jolly. And by the time I got to G, I was cool if I never ever got on a microphone again. I was cool with it. And people were like, Juice, how come you're on the radio? How come you're not doing this? How come you're not doing whatever? And I'm like, it's cool. It's cool. My time will come. And once I got on the radio, I was cool with it. I did some live to airs first. I still didn't have a show. And the whole time that I was at G, which was 7.5 years, I was only on the radio once a week, and I just did fill-ins. And I never did a mix show. In the whole time I was there, I never DJ'd on Flow, right? However, I DJ'd. I had a mix show on Flow. I had a mix show on WBOK. I definitely played on CHRY, but they never asked me to do a fill-in. I never did anything like that, and I was okay with it. I was majorly okay with it. I don't look at it and say, why didn't they use me this way? Then I got to Element. And Element basically was like, we got a guy who can do this, this, and whatever. And I'm like, and they were like, instead of keeping me on the bench, they're like, okay, you're starting lineup now. You know what I mean? And it's been beautiful in the sense that all the things I learned along my journey, I'm now able to use now. It's and I've been able to work with people in the industry who have won awards. And there's another thing that I learned in my travels as well too, that if you're the smartest man in the room, you need to go to the room where you're the dumbest, because you're not going to learn that way. And I had to go, and they had a guy named Doug Thompson. Doug Thompson is like the Michael Jordan of writing commercials. He is the GOAT, right? He has won more crystal awards than any other human being on the planet. And I learned from him. In the short time that he was there, I learned from him. Bob McGee is the morning announcer, and I've learned so much from him. He's been on CHY, he's been on Chum, he's been on different things, whatever. And I've learned from him and how to go in and out of a break, how to do things, how to be tighter. And they hired a guy by the name of Glenn Knight, who is the production director. And he is my yin to my yang. So I write something, and I don't have to say to him, you know, I need this music and I need that, whatever. We just gel. And and the two of us have never met, because he got hired like the week before they locked down for COVID. We have never met. And we do a mix show together where he is the DJ and I DJ sometimes. And we put together the show that is seamless, where it was only supposed to be like a 4-week fill-in. And we've been on since what, May, June? And now we're on, 8 to 11 every Saturday. And then we're on, and then it repeats from 11 to 2 in the morning on both radio stations. It's syndicated. I have a syndicated mix show, plus, and then it repeats again on Fridays. So those little, and then also I'm helping out on the morning show too. So these little things, these little nuggets, everybody wants to be on the air. You can make a great living in radio if you just find that thing that you do well and then just move. Just move out there. You don't have to be out there in public. You don't have to be that person who everybody knows. And as I said, I'm mad cool just being in the background. As I said, right? It's been said by others. I mean, Chris Rock said it the best. I don't want to be Shaq. I want to be the person who pays Shaq. You know what I mean? I want to be that guy. I want to be able to train people. I've been able in my career to be able to teach other announcers. I've been able to teach, middle school kids and high school kids about how to stand behind a microphone. One of the things I did was I put together a program, and I did it at the Afrocentric School last year. And my purpose for doing it was to allow children to speak with good diction. I wanted kids, especially people of color, that when they're spoken to, they don't put their head down, they don't look away, they know how to speak, they know how to answer a question. Because when called upon, that 2 seconds of interaction can wind you up either alive or dead. And you know that. Mm-hmm. You know that. Especially a black man in this city right now. If you don't know how to speak to a cop, you could wind up dead. Simple. And I wanted them to know how to be able to express themselves. I wanted them to know how to be able to speak. I wanted them to know how to address their parents. I wanted them to know how to conduct themselves so they're able to get a job. I wanted them to be able to articulate themselves when they're asked a question. So, hey, why did you apply to this company? Well, I applied to this company because this is the way it is. And I wanted people to know a little bit about their history. I'm at schools, and they don't, and I'm looking at the school, and I'm looking at the wall, and I'm saying, well, who is this person here? And they like, I have no idea, right? As you can see behind me, when my son comes in over to my house, he can see the people from Canada who are stalwarts within our community, right? One of the things I love to say to people when I do things is Oscar Peterson is a concert pianist. He's probably one of Canada's best pianists of all time. He was not able to walk or stay in, oh my gosh, why am I forgetting the thing? The York, oh, what's it called again? The Royal York Hotel. He wasn't able to stay there.
Wow.
Right? He wasn't able to stay there. And I remember the first time I ever DJ'd there. The white man took my records. He says, "Hello, sir, how you doing?" And he took my records and he walked my stuff in there. And I'm thinking, look how far we've come. Where Oscar Peterson couldn't even stay in this hotel. And a white man is now taking my records out of my car into the main auditorium, right? And little stories like that, I want everybody to be able to understand that our history is so strong within this country, that we've done a lot of things in this country that people just don't know. Even from the aspect of radio, there's not a lot of creative directors in Canada. I actually asked, there's not even a lot of black program directors, right? There once was 3.
Thank God for ours.
Now I think there's 2. 2 black.
Randy
2 black,
and
yeah, Randy's a program director, but again, we're talking commercial radio. We're not talking college, but on a commercial level, there's one. There's one right now. There used to be 3. Up until 3 months ago, there was 3. There was Wayne.
What do you call commercial now? Because Vibe has transferred over into not going into the fundraising things and stuff like that. So
again, I'd have to see their license. I mean, but again, when I think of commercial radio station, I'm thinking of not block programming. Commercial radio is not block programming. But again, that's a whole other story. I don't know the new aspect of Vibe, so I don't want to speak on it. I don't want to speak out of turn and say something that's not correct.
That's right.
But I know at Chorus, because we broadcast out of the Chorus building, they had a career day where they brought up a whole bunch of different program directors, people within the industry, whatever. And I'm upstairs. I'm a creative director. I never got called. I didn't get called. There's black students there. I didn't get called. I just came downstairs because a friend of mine who works at Jazz FM came down.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to Dave McTeague and I said, Dave, and Dave came up and said hi to people because we all worked together at G. And he's like, yo, come on downstairs. And we came downstairs. And when we came down, the station manager is black. The program director is black. And we're working at an indigenous radio station. And to know that there's black people within the industry that they can look at and say, I can be that person. I can aspire to be that person. There's a whole different ball of wax, because the Canadian landscape, especially in radio, is still incredibly white. They send you to places like Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan to intern. I mean, you walk into Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, listen.
You're standing out.
Dude, you're reading the obituary. Like, the obituary is like the thing you do for the week. I've been at a radio station where I'm trying to be serious, and a guy pulls down his pants and starts wiggling his wee-wee in front of me because he wants to make me laugh. Because that's the highlight of the week, the obituary. So you're reading that people dead, and that's what you do. That's the thing that you do. You know what I mean?
Wow.
If you go on, and getting a job in radio is like the secret society. If you don't know what website to go to, good luck. You're not getting it. That's just the way it is. And all the jobs in radio are always out west. So you start off out west and you move your way back to Toronto. For those who don't know, Toronto is the 4th largest media market in North America. So if you're able to just jump on the radio station in Toronto, consider yourself blessed. But as well too, if you got on, make sure you learn that it's not just about the music while you're there. Because as quickly as you got on, as quickly as you'll leave. And that's happened to so many guys within the industry, right? Like, I look at guys like Mastermind. Mastermind, the first time I ever heard Mastermind, he sent a tape into Ron Nelson. And what's funny is Ron Nelson doesn't get the props. I mean, he finally has his walk on the fame. But Ron Nelson gave birth to many DJs, MCs, announcers, singers, rappers, and whatever, from having a show where he was a Ryerson, guy who went, at that time it was a polytechnical institution. It wasn't even a university then. And Mr. and I'm gonna give his full name, he's gonna hate me for it, but Mr. Ronald Christopher Nelson was like the first and only guy out of the city of Toronto who graduated radio broadcasting, and he had a show from 1 to 3, a hip hop show first, on 88.1 in the basement of Ryerson. It was on Gould Street, and Ernie was a guy who sold hot dogs outside at the front. And I remember leaving. I was working at Eaton's them times. And no, it was actually 1 to 3 first. It was 1 to 3. Remember this. It was 1 to 3 first, then it went to 1 to 4.
Yeah, this was before reggae. This wasn't
this
reggae.
This is way before reggae. Way before. The person who did
everybody, that man started in hip hop. It wasn't reggae.
It was hip hop. It was hip hop. And for those of you who have some old records, if you go to the first Boogie Down Productions album, on the flip side, it says, "Big up to Ron Nelson." If you go to the back of a PE album, Public Enemy, it has that on the back of it. You know what I mean? These are the things that people do. Ron kind of left hip hop for a minute, and the show became the Power Move with X, and then Ron left and started doing Reggae Mania, which was originally called a Reggae Showcase with a white guy by the name of David Kingston. David Kingston was the person who had that time slot on the Friday, and David Kingston left because it was called Reggae Showcase, and then Ron changed it from a Rootical show into more of a dancehall show. And those are the things. Those are those little nuggets, because I always say that there's a history beyond the history. Ron had to monitor other radio stations to learn how to be that person. How I know Ron Nelson is Ron gave away tickets to see DJ Jazzy J at 309 The Breakdance Theater, which was 309 Parliament Street. DJ Jazzy J was Tila Rock's DJ. And I remember winning tickets on there, and that's kind of how I met Ron Nelson. I never really started doing commercials with Ron Nelson until like 1991 when I started doing Vertigo. But I used to answer the phones down for Ron there. And then Gary Wright and what was the guy's name again? Gary Wright and his brother and a couple other people started doing CHOY. And that's kind of how I learned where CHOY was. There's so many different little things or different nuggets. Like, so a lot of people will say, well, hey, I'm the one who started it. No, you didn't. Somebody else did it before you. And somebody else did it in another market. Everybody comes up with ideas every single day. We just don't know the other. And the things, we're all interconnected. And there's a lot of regurgitation that comes out with things. So we may think that we started something. We may think that we pioneered something, but there's so many other individuals who came before us. And when you actually look at the history of the city of Toronto and how things go, and I'm going to bring up somebody that we don't give a lot of credit to, I'm going to bring up a guy by the name of Donald Willard Moore. Donald Willard Moore was a Bayesian who came to this country, who basically was responsible for bringing all the black people who you see in this country. He went to Ottawa way before there was a march on Washington. Donald Willard Moore went to Ottawa in 1954 and took a delegation of workers, sleeping car porters, and other people. So it was Bromley Armstrong, it was Stanley Grizzell, Donald Willard Moore, and a whole bunch of other people, and basically went at that time and talked to the government to change the immigration laws to allow people of color into Canada. Because what was happening was people of color would come to Canada and be turned back because they said you couldn't take the cold. My Aunt B is the first immigrant black nurse in Canada. She came here in 1953. She was a university. Sorry, she went to England and did her schooling in England out of Jamaica, and already had a job at what was then called the New Mount Sinai Hospital. And they denied her access because they didn't think black people could deal with the cold. They just didn't want black people here. And she came here in basically December of 1953, or either December, November 1953. And she also, you know, became that person. So there's a history, and keep in mind there wasn't a radio station, right? Bromley Armstrong said something. Bromley Armstrong said something that was very interesting. He was actually the first vice president of the Toronto Negro Credit Union, and he did this when he was 25 years old, back in the 50s. These are all pioneers. These are way before the structure of Toronto. And he said something that was very interesting. And when you think, let this sink in for a minute. The first time he saw a black man pick up his garbage, he wept.
Cried.
Think about that for a second. Because he realized we weren't good enough to pick up a man's garbage. But having a city job meant that you were going to get a pension, you were going to get paid great, you had benefits, you were able to take care of your family. So when he saw a black man who had a job with the city pick up his garbage, this man died, and I don't think he's ever seen a black fireman in his life. I remember seeing him maybe 5-6 years ago, and he says, you know what, I've never seen a black fireman. I've never seen one. And he helped bring in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. You know what I'm saying? As a black man.
Yeah.
He's never seen he said, Johnson, have you ever seen a black fireman in your life? Think about it. Have you ever seen one? Have you ever seen a black fireman? Think about it. Have you ever seen a black fireman? Ever?
John.
In Canada.
Juice, I'm not a fan of Black History Month. I'm not a fan.
Why not?
I'm black every day.
Understood. But you also have to realize one thing about the culture, and that is we need to have what's called generational wealth. And if we don't teach our children the history of this city, like, as much as you want to say this, Kensington Market was a staple in our community, not because we were able to get oxtail and chicken foot and wings and all these things for free from European Meat Shop, and you had to sit there with the sawdust on the floor and all them things there. No, it was a meeting place. It was a place where we congregated to see people who looked like us, because we didn't have that structure at the time, right? Third World Bookstore was the only bookstore at the time that actually had books that looked like us, like were people that had us, right? There's a guy. Here's another funny thing. The most read book in the world is a book called A Snowy Day. It was written by Ezra Jack Keats, a white guy who wrote books with a black character in it. Why? Because he went to Vietnam and came back, and he's like, you know what? There's a lot of other people in the world that are not white, and he wrote a character with a small boy in there that was black. I think I have the book somewhere around here if my son did not move it, but yeah, that's it.
That book.
You know, it's a little kiddie book. It's a little book. And you know what's funny? I actually stopped lending out books because
you never get them back.
No, I remember I lent somebody the 50th Law, and I'll now can't get it back. I have an autographed copy of Louise Bennett's last book that she did, and I'll now can't get that back as well too. So yeah, I don't lend books anymore. I say go spend the $10 at like a knowledge bookstore and thing like that. But yeah, that's it.
Yo, Juice, did you see the writing on the? Okay, you know what? Let me ask you this first.
I knew this question was coming, so I was ready for it. I know it comes.
You know what I'm talking about.
I said I knew he's gonna take me around the bend. He's gonna do it already. And when I'm not looking, he's just gonna like blah. Here comes the question. So I'm ready for it. Go on with the question. Okay, I'm ready for it. Let me just get comfortable. Let me get comfortable now.
But first, let me just tell you this.
Okay.
There's no joy. I'm not going to degrade it. I'm way too much mature now. And I understand many things. I understand from a lot of teaching, especially from yourself. I mean, I'm glad that I have this now so people could understand why I stayed the way I stayed, because here's the teacher for it. This is a man that I, tried to duplicate. I couldn't duplicate it in mixing. So what I did was I branched off on the tacophone. I was the vibes you.
Understood.
The Robin and Batman situation where we were just a duo. That's the way I thought of it. We were the duo. You see what I'm saying? So I take no joy, and I'm not degrading them. But I mean, did you see the writing on the wall for this happening, for that particular station that, is now sold? Did
I see the writing on the wall?
Yeah.
It's a very loaded question, and I'll say this. I will say this, and I'll say, and I'll leave it on this level.
Right.
All good things come to an end, no matter what. In the last year, we've seen the end of Wayne Gretzky's. We've seen the ends of Crocodile Rock. We've seen the end of many different businesses, whatever. I remember, I never thought I'd ever see this. We saw the end of Honesteds. I never thought I'd ever see the end of Honesteds.
The end of what?
Honesteds.
Oh,
like
yes,
Honest, yeah. I mean, Sam the Record Man with the lights and stuff like that. We saw the end of a lot of iconic things that have happened in Toronto. And I don't know if this is the end, but what I'll say is it was always going to be an uphill battle. And as I said at the beginning of the show, and that's one of the reasons why I said it, for a radio station to survive, they need 80% of the revenue to come from agencies. They have to be within the top 10. That means that to keep that radio station, they needed to have, one, the wattage to do it. And you already know the CBC tried to block them on that already. You already know that other people were fighting against them left, right, and center, whatever. You already know by the color of their skin that they're getting a fight, whatever. You know that Mr. Jolly, when he had Flow, had probably the best bid back when I was leaving school. And they gave it to Kiss 92.5. And if you remember at the time, Kiss 92.5 was a country radio station. They gave it to a country radio station. A lot of people don't remember that. And we did a video back in 1990 where I'm like 180 pounds soaking wet. Don't even look at the video. But all these little things they did to fight against them. Mr. Jolly went 3 times and put a bid in. And then finally he had to go and team up with Standard Broadcasting, which was Gary Slate and those guys, to get Flow. Standard Broadcasting at one time, also owned the Raptors. And you know what they did to the Raptors. They put the shotgun clause and tried to get them down there. You remember that. Cool. Now, in the time when Mr. Gordon got his radio station, he got that radio station license from like 2004, 2005 time, right? Okay. That's when he got it. He didn't get to broadcast till 2011 because it was just held up in foolishness. So already you're starting behind the 8 ball. Now, and again, imagine you gotta give up your house. Why did somebody just put up dancing people? Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. This DJ Rhythm knows his history. He just put it up. Okay, we're kids. Yeah, don't go look for that video. Straight up. But he had to mortgage his house, man, to keep the station afloat. And when you're a one-man entity, when you have people such as Rogers, brethren, Bell, and CBC fighting you, taking you to court and all these other sort of stuff, where's the money coming from? How many small businesses do you know in the city that are doing $5 million that are black owned? You know what I mean? As I said, our radio station cannot survive on mom and pop stores. And that's one of the issues. And did I see it coming? No. Did I know that they were in for a fight? Yes. But I knew within myself that I had to move on for my own self, because I got headhunted straight up. I'll be the first one to tell you that they came and whatever. And again, regardless of the factor is that I worked at, when I first got to G, I thought I was going to retire there.
Right.
But that's just me just wanting to be that militant black guy who always wants to be around anything black. But I realized that, especially in the city, we're not ready for all black. We're not ready to support the things that we do. One of the bad things that happens within our community is we have this very bad habit of saying we want something, and when it's not what we exactly want and it's not catering to exactly what it is, we feel like, oh, I'm not supporting that. I'm going to go back and support the white man. And we do it all the time. We do it all the time, right? There's a reason why. I mean, think about it logically. We put products in our hair that are not made by us. We wear clothes that are not made by us. And then we blame black people who are trying to do something and say, oh, we need to stick together. We need to do this. We need to support our own. We don't support our own. Well, obviously you don't support our own because you're using Dove and Ivory Spoke that doesn't care about you. You're still going to H&M when they put out a T-shirt that says, monkey in the jungle, referring to black people as monkeys. We have black people who are still supporting, Agent Orange in the United States of America, and are voting for people like that. We see people not supporting things, whatever. I try to support black as much as possible because we are the only we have. And if we don't continue to support we, who will? If not me, then who? Right?
Right.
We did a march down Yonge Street, and we call ourselves, Kings on King Street, because that's where it started. And it was basically just, GQ Henderson and a couple other guys just getting together and saying, hey, we need to change the narrative of what black men look like in the city of Toronto. And we did it, and it was fun, it was enjoyable, whatever, and guys came out in suits, and we basically tried to change the narrative.
So that was the march where every man had to dress up in suit and tie and...
Yeah, man. And we did, and there was no agenda. It was just basically just to show black men that way. It was basically to show black excellence, because you know what was happening. And it was a great movement, it was a great thing. We're gonna try to do it next year as well too. And it was very powerful. And white people were taking pictures. They were tweeting it. They were sending it out, whatever. And you know what's the hilarious thing about it? Some sisters tried to drag us, basically saying it was basically it was a glorified don't rush challenge. And I was like, my sisters are doing this, man? Really? In the middle of COVID? Where I have a son, I have daughters, I'm risking my life to go out here to do something to basically show what we're about, and you're trying to drag me like that? I've been at that station for 7.5 years. I know how much money was spent by the black community. I know what businesses actually spent money on G98.7. I don't know which ones didn't. And the ones who didn't have the most to say. So don't come to me 8 years later and talk about how we should have done this or they should have done this, and whatever the case may be. You know what? Woulda, shoulda, coulda is a suggestion. I did is a life lesson. Remember that. I can tell you something. I can say, I did this because I did it. You saw me do it. You know I can do it. So obviously you're going to follow me.
Yeah.
But when people say you should, here's how you should answer them. How did it work when you tried it? How much money did you invest in the radio station? How many events did you attend? Did you go to any of the businesses that were advertised on the station? No. Then shut up. Seriously, shut up. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear anything out of your mouth. I know from 1988, when Contrast and Cher were talking about a black music radio station in Canada, the fight that had to be done. I was in that Can't Repress the Cause video for Dance Appeal. I was at Spectrum when they had that performance. I was there for the 2-day video shoot. I was there when they said that that radio station is going to go to KISS, which was a country radio station. I remember the guy from the CRTC saying, this is foolishness. I'm leaving. This is racism. I remember John Derringer, right? Who worked at that time for the Fan 590 saying, I can't believe that the CRTC gave a bunch of white bread. He said, you know what I mean? He's white himself, and he's like, I can't believe you guys gave a license to another white bread station again. This is crazy. And he was on the radio, on the Fan saying that. And the funny thing is he works in the course building. I've never seen him. And I always said, if I ever meet this guy, I'm going to shake his hand and say, thank you. Because people knew it was not right and unjust. And you know that every single time we get stuff, it's crumbs. Flow 93.5 was a what left station. It was what was left when they got 91.1. 98.7 was a what left station. They gave us the scraps and said, deal with this. Think about this logically. Think about the food we eat, for example. We love oxtail. Oxtail was scraps, brethren. It was slave food. Tripe and bean is slave food. Pig trotters, slave food. All them things are slave food. It's the what left that we get to deal with, and that's what we have to do, whatever. And when we make something out of it, guess what they do? They try to take that away from us again. They put up, you know what I mean? They put up a law. They put up different things. They say you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that when we try to do stuff. Right? Here now. Regent Park. TKO used to do blockos in there regular back in the 80s. You know what I mean? We all draw straws. Who's going to hook up to the lamppost? You know what I mean? For those who know Regent Park, like I know Regent Park, it was either 15 Bellshaw Place or over at Whitehorse and whatever, and the Ontario housing buildings. And Bimbo, we used to take extension cords and run them into Bimbo's house to get power. The cops would come and they would just come for the food or whatever, because there'd always be a fashion show going on or something like that. Right?
Right.
Fast forward now, they're doing the whole gentrification of Regent Park and basically calling it Cabbagetown. There's a BMW dealership there. There's a Lexus dealership and all these different things and yada, yada, yada. Right? Park School is now called the Nelson Mandela School. And what happens is this. The powers that be said, we want to do a blocko in that area. Mm-hmm. But to get that blocko done, guess what you have to do now? You have to hire off-duty cops. You have to have,
permit.
You have to have permits. You have to have $1 million liability. You have to all this stuff. And all it was to do was just to say, thank you. All that. So to do a freeness thing, just for the people who you're kicking out of this area, who've lived there their whole life, it's going to cost you thousands of dollars to do. Who generally lives in that area? Black people. And these are the things that happen over and over and over again to our community, right?
Yeah.
Whether it becomes zoning, whether it becomes different things. You know, I mean, you could have a business. Think about the business that, the Real Jerk. The Real Jerk's been at the corner of Broadview and Queen for years and years and years and years, and now they want to build something in there, right? So they
Yeah.
kick them out. If you don't own the building, you're finished. It happens all the time. There's businesses closing every single day. There's things that are happening, and unfortunately, this radio station in its way of in its thing was not viable. And people are saying, well, hey, all you need is a 250,000. Where'd you get that from? You need about $5 million to make that radio station viable. You got 5 million, boss? Oh, well, why doesn't Drake put up his money for the radio station? That's not his thing. You can't tell a man how to spend his money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But the format on the outside looking in, and I don't think it was working. What was inside, you were inside.
Again, I mean, formats change every week. Formats change all the thing and whatever the case may be. I mean, again, it's when you have radio stations do changes all the time. Look at Flow, for example. Flow fired, Mastermind. You know what I mean? And they moved the morning show to the afternoons to bring on the Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
And it's not like Flow's ratings were tanking or anything like that. They wanted to make a change. And
now the Breakfast Club is gone.
Thank you. Thank you. That's how corporations do things. I remember working at Bell Mobility, and they sold me a big bag of goods. Oh yeah, hey Jonathan, whatever, you're gonna be here, da 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 da, whatever. And they called us all down for a meeting. We thought, and
everybody let go.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
And I'm waiting for my letter of employment for the first time in my life. I'm actually gonna try to go on Hoagie money. I'm finally gonna go get some EI. And brethren, I didn't get an EI check from September to December 27th of that year. This was 2008. I remember it like it was yesterday because that was my first Christmas that I had with my girls, right? Where the girls were going to be staying with me. And I had to find clothes in the drawer that I had never given them and wrap them up and say, hold this for Christmas. I had no money. I had no money from September to December. And that's the thing that happens within the industry. Like, radio announcers don't buy Christmas presents, Reggie, because the book don't come out till January. You know what I mean? Real talk.
Yeah. Real talk.
No, we don't know if we're gonna have a job come January, so we're not buying nobody a Christmas present. Don't look for, if you know somebody's a radio announcer, don't ask them for nothing for Christmas because that book don't come out. You know what I mean? It's like a report card. Your parents ain't buying you jack till that report card comes out. And when that report card comes out, you're like, it's either gonna be beaten or are you gonna get something. Simple.
Listen, we've been talking for another hour again, and people don't know. It's been that interesting. I've been that interesting, and I have another question before the live ends, and I want to rejoin again. But I want you to think about it within the next 1 minute that I have to change over.
Okay.
Do you think there is a place, or is there market for reggae music to be a dominant genre in the industry? Don't answer now. We're going to restart.
I'll give you my plan. Okay, no problem. Okay, cool.